Welcome to Living Fully. Each episode is a chance to talk about mental health in a way that's simple, honest, and helpful. We'll share stories, tips, and tools to help you feel supported and feel your best. I'm your host, Catherine Hertig. Today, I'm continuing the conversation with Rasha Taha, counsellor with Calgary Counselling Centre and Counselling Alberta, about LGBTQ+ mental health and the importance of Pride Month. In this episode, we get into some of the more everyday experiences that can affect mental health for LGBTQ+ people. Things like subtle judgment, feeling misunderstood, microaggressions, and the pressure to fit into boxes that don't always reflect who someone is. Rasha also talks about the importance of feeling seen and supported, whether that's through community, representation, or finding the right counselor fit. And Rasha shares some really thoughtful insights into how people can approach these conversations with more curiosity, less assumption, and more compassion, both during Pride Month and beyond. Rasha, we often talk about, equality, acceptance, those kinds of things. But what are some of the real mental health challenges that LGBTQ+ people still run into?
Kind of coming back to what we originally talked about, how identity plays a part in mental health and mental health plays a part in identity. And it's a constant back and forth. Queer and trans folks experience anxiety, depression, different challenges that people experience, and it's unique to what their experience looks like. And so a trans person experiencing depression looks different than a cis person experiencing depression. But that's coming back to each person's unique experience of their life and recognizing that, let's say, in that experience of depression, it may be unique to the discrimination that they experience as a trans person. And I think that's important to be able to vocalize that the way that folks experience society plays a big role in how their mental health is shaped. I'll put it into an example. Let's say there is a youth living out in rural Alberta somewhere, and they are contending with their identity. They realize they are trans, and they don't really have any representation around them in the town that they live in. They don't know any other trans person. They live in a relatively conservative household that hasn't really talked about different identities and being able to exist as a different gender than the one that you were assigned. That's absolutely going to impact their mental health and their perception of themselves. Yeah. It's going to play a huge part in how uncomfortable they are navigating the world. And so it goes hand in hand with shaping their mental health. And they may experience anxiety as a result of going to school and feeling uncomfortable in the body that they're in or being perceived as a gender that they're not. It's 110% going to impact how they view themselves. Maybe it might lead to more anxiety, more depression, different mental health challenges that may come up for them. It's going to shape their experience.
And how do things like discrimination, stigma, or just, feeling misunderstood, how does that show up mentally, emotionally?
When thinking about discrimination, stigma, the word that's automatically coming to mind is a sense of rejection from society, not being seen, not being validated for who we are, being seen as
different.
Different in a bad way, like less than. Less than human, subhuman, a different category, an element of otherness. And I think that can lead to a plethora of mental health challenges and struggles that are going to come up.
Like you said, just it can show up in so many ways. I could see a lot of anger. I could see...
Yeah, and I was going in that direction of maybe folks will end up self-isolating more, not reaching out to their friends as much, not existing in the community as much, not pursuing their interests as much. And I do think it's important to acknowledge, again, it's not a matter of black and white. Oftentimes it does come up as, let's say, microaggressions throughout someone's life, throughout someone's day.
Do you have examples of that?
Yeah, so it may not be they're walking out into the world and then someone outright says something deeply offensive to them. Yeah. And that is very, very direct, right? That's kind of the black and white. Like someone directly said something towards me that was discriminatory in nature, oppressive in nature. It can look like microaggressions at work, where folks, let's say, I'm going to think of an example around someone shows up wearing clothing that people would not expect someone of that gender to wear. I'm thinking someone who presents as male to the world showing up in a skirt. That may garner some looks from people. Maybe they are looks of dissent, of rejection, of disgust, of insert something in here. It's not something that is said, oh, that is ugly, you shouldn't wear it, or whatever it may be.
It's more subtle.
Exactly. And that's kind of where microaggressions come in. It's the subtle ways that people communicate their disagreement, their judgments, their criticisms, their hatred, whatever it may be. And it's almost like death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Yeah.
Right? It's a small cut, and it may not in that moment be all that harmful. It's still harmful. You know, it's not a gushing wound, but
over time,
exactly.
Experiencing those over and over again.
Exactly. Because it's not just an isolated incident, because again, if living in a society where we haven't quite gotten to a place where people get to express themselves in the way that they want without any harassment.
These microaggressions, as an ally, I'd say, I mean, I never do that intentionally, obviously. Like, are there unconscious microaggressions? And if so, how would someone keep that in check?
The immediate example that came up for me is, let's say, people with disabilities, people with visible disabilities, people in wheelchairs, or people who have missing limbs, or who are visibly look like they have a disability. Oftentimes people are stared at, maybe gawked at.
Yeah.
And am I exempt from that? Absolutely not. But it takes conscious effort to go, nope, that is something that I'm choosing not to do. That is something that I'm not going to stare for X amount of time. Like I'm going to acknowledge the person and move on. And so I think it just takes deliberate practice to do that times everyone, right? Regardless of what people look like, regardless of how people are presenting. And I think specifically when it comes to queer and trans folks, and this is a bit more unique to trans people, what I have seen over the years in society, in community, is there's an obsession with trying to figure out what gender someone is, if they are visibly trans. And it's no one's business. It's legit no one's business. But for some reason, there's societal level of obsession around needing to figure out, was someone born with these parts or with those parts or with that part? Like,
why do you think that is? Why the obsession?
I think we want to know. We like knowing. We want people to fit in boxes.
Yeah,
and when
we want to understand.
When people don't fit in boxes, then we try to fill in the blanks. But that in and of itself leads to people being stared at, gawked at, seen as different or othered, and it's not a pleasant feeling to be stared at in public. Right? I think everyone can likely agree with that.
Yeah.
But when that happens, again, death by 1,000 cuts, when that happens over and over and over and over again, imagine how much courage it takes for a visibly trans person to go out into the world knowing that they're likely going to be stared at because someone is trying to figure out what parts they have. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I like talking about this out loud because it sounds ridiculous when we talk about it out loud. It's literally no one's business. Carry on with your day and let people live, ultimately.
But besides checking ourselves that we're not staring, are there microaggressions that could be experienced by LGBTQ folks that I might not even consider or think of, but that I might be doing? Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's as simple as treat people how you want to be treated, is it? Yeah.
No. And I think that's generally, while I think it's considered the golden rule.
Yeah.
I think it's the platinum rule or a different color rule of treat people the way that they want to be treated.
Yeah, I've heard that down too. Yeah.
I think that's accurate.
Yeah. But how do you know if you don't know? Yeah.
And you don't. I think the biggest thing is try not to make assumptions. And have humility and let go of your ego. And if you mess up, try to be a decent person. Try to be someone who is considerate of other people's experiences. Try not to make assumptions based off of appearance.
Yeah.
Leave room for ambiguity and not knowing and be okay with it.
And that's a tough thing. Yeah. I mean, what I've learned from these conversations with you guys is that we don't like ambiguity and uncertainty.
We hate it.
And we want to understand. Yeah.
And coming back to curiosity.
Yeah.
Being curious rather than making assumptions, right? Rather than assuming what someone's pronouns are, ask.
Yeah.
It's not a harmful practice to ask when you don't know.
Yeah.
It's respectful, and it leaves a lot of room for people to feel seen and to be able to tell you how they identify and how they would like to be seen by you. I think it's a practice that we can all benefit from. Over the last few years, there has been more acceptance of people using different pronouns.
Yeah.
People are putting them in their email signatures. There's a lot more awareness of that, which is wonderful. And we still have work to do in terms of using those pronouns, not making assumptions on what people's genders are. There's a ton of different layers there.
This next question, it could apply to anyone, but what are some signs that someone might be struggling with their mental health? Yeah, some signs that they could benefit from support.
I think a big one is self-isolation.
Yeah.
Right? Not wanting to be out in spaces that, let's say, they typically exist in. And so self-isolation could be a pretty big sign just across the board. I think that it can be a big indicator that something may be not quite fitting for someone in terms of maybe they're at a new job that they have been struggling with because people keep misgendering them, right? And so they show up less, they interact less with their coworkers, not wanting to put themselves out there or interact with others. That's a pretty big sign that something needs to change, something needs to shift. Whether it's HR needs to get involved, whether this person ought to find somewhere else that isn't oppressive.
What are some signs that someone might see in someone close to them?
I suppose specifically for queer and trans folks, if, let's say, someone has historically had a really vibrant gender expression, and then you notice that they start being less expressive, changing their mannerisms, changing their way of dress in a way that isn't as celebratory of who they are, I think that's a sign that we can pay attention to. That, hey, are they having a bit of a hard time? Are they experiencing something that is leading to them feeling crappy about themselves? Like, what's going on there? So I think shifts in personality, shifts in expression, and it's similar to, let's say, someone really loving fashion and makeup and expressing themselves through it all the time or most of the time, and then they have a bout of 6 months where they don't use that to express themselves. That's something that we can just be curious about, right? Maybe they're tired and they just don't feel like it.
Getting support for mental health, if you're LGBTQ, how can having a counselor who shares or understands your identity, how can that make a difference in that support and feeling understood?
Yeah. And this goes back to something that I had said earlier around if you and I share the same letter in the acronym doesn't mean we have the similar experience. And so I think this applies here too, that I think there is something to be said around walking into, whether it's physical or virtual, a therapy session, knowing that your counselor is a part of the community. There can be a level of ease that comes from it, a level of almost implicit acceptance, and I put that with an asterisk because that's what it should be. It's not always what it is.
Right, yeah. My assumption is that there's at least a bit of groundwork already done. Like you don't have to explain certain things because there is that understanding.
Yep.
Yeah.
And at the same time, acknowledging and recognizing that people still make mistakes and people still misspeak and may not be up to speed on the most up-to-date language. So I think this is both the role of a counselor and a client, of walking in with some element of humility and the counselor having also humility of, hey, just because we're both particular subcategory of the queer community doesn't mean we have shared the exact same lived experience. I think it's helpful for clients to also know that there can be this level of implicit acceptance, but it's also not always a given, unfortunately. Like I've had some queer counselors that have been a terrible fit for me.
Yeah.
Right? It's kind of like saying, hey, just because we both fall into the same community means you're going to be a good fit, means you're going to be respectful, means X, Y, Z. So we want to avoid that catch-all understanding.
Yeah, like if someone is LGBTQ looking for counseling, like you're recommending that you don't always have to go for someone who's also LGBTQ.
Yeah. And I have appreciated it when I have known that my counselor is also queer.
Yeah.
Knowing that, it's more so for me.
Yeah.
It's for me in terms of I feel seen knowing that I am in this space, but I also can't expect them to know everything.
Yeah,
and I can't
for sure.
expect them to understand my experience right off the bat. I still have work to do there, and they're still allowed to ask questions. They're still allowed to be curious about what my experience looks like. It's not, I can't walk in assuming that they get it all because no one can, whether they're queer or not.
You know, it's a comfort level thing because I've had a lot of counseling experience in my life and I always gravitate towards women. But again, my conversations with you guys, I've realized, who knows, maybe if I have had a counselor of another gender, the experience could have been different. It might have given me different insight. We do like our comfort zone and think like this person is like me, so they will understand. But that might be cutting ourselves off from other helpful perspectives.
There's a lot of accuracy and validity in what you just described, that, there can be a level of comfort. And we can also benefit from having different perspectives. Yeah. What I truly value about us here at CCC is that we have a wide variety of folks of different walks of life. And so if folks do want to see someone within the community, within a community of their preference, we're going to try our best to match them up with that if that's something that they have vocalized. Yeah. And we don't get to decide for them their level of comfort of why they're choosing it.
Well, and that's something we know, like one of the biggest factors for counseling being successful is that connection you feel with your counselor, like that fit. Absolutely. And if it's not there, it's just not going to be as good of an experience. And that's the thing, like, I think we have a hard time giving that feedback or kind of saying like, I don't think this is a good fit. We need to encourage people, especially any clients that come to Calgary Counseling Center or Counseling Alberta, that we have so many counselors. So if someone you see for the first couple times, you're not feeling it, you can ask to switch. Yeah.
Absolutely.
If someone doesn't have a counselor that fits into their like similar lived experience, what else can help them still feel understood in counseling?
I think vocalizing what it is that they might need from the counselor. Hey, I like it when you tell me things direct. Right? Yeah. Don't sugarcoat it. Just tell it to me as it is. Or, hey, I actually really appreciate a softer approach. Yeah. Please sugarcoat it because it helps me process it. Clients having an idea of how they like to receive support and how they like to receive feedback, how they like to be asked questions is always a helpful place to start from. Let's say clients feel like a particular area of their life/lived experience is so unique to them and they feel like it's important for their counselor to know about it. Come in and ask your counselor to do their research. That's okay.
Yeah, like you said, you don't want to have to explain it all the time. So put that on someone else. Like, do your own research.
Yeah, exactly. And so, again, this is where we get to leave a little bit of room. Let's say client mentions identity X, and counselor goes, I'm not super familiar with identity X, but it's something I'm going to look into for the next time that we meet together, right? That's the counselor's job to do that. And it could be about anything.
To have more of that understanding.
Yeah, exactly. We all have a lot of room to grow and learn, and we're not going to know every single identity, every single thing. It's literally unrealistic.
Yeah.
And so this is where kind of humility comes in, and clients recognizing that counselors are human and they're not walking encyclopedias. It would be nice if we could be, but leaving room for counselors to recognize their limitations and try to do something about it.
Rasha, how important is community and having, your people? How important is that when it comes to mental health and supporting someone's mental health?
I think it is of the utmost importance in general, but I think specifically when it comes to queer and trans folks, I think knowing that there are other folks who share bits and pieces of your identity, other folks who are also expressing themselves in the ways that make sense to them, I think the solidarity there can be massive.
Just having other people who get it.
Yeah, exactly. Feeling seen, feeling heard, not having to explain your existence to others. Again, that ease of it, but also being able to learn from other people.
Yeah.
Like, I have absolutely learned so much about myself through being immersed in queer community, because then I'm exposed to different facets of the community, of different identities. So I think it's important in that respect. But I also think representation really matters. Having queer and trans folks exist in all different facets of life. Seeing them at the grocery store, seeing them in government, seeing them in different positions of power, in businesses, in whatever it may be, that visibility and that representation normalizes the existence of those identities and the way that people express themselves.
For sure.
And again, just makes it a normal part of day-to-day life. It's not something that is unusual. It's not something that is weird or a one-off.
They belong where anyone else does.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. If you don't have that group, if you don't have that support system, what are some ways that you can begin to kind of build connection and find those supportive spaces?
The internet is a wonderful place. It can be a terrible place for others. But I think in terms of being able to find different resources, there are so many different groups that are, let's say, across Canada, that are across Alberta, that are across the world, that you can hop in on, that run different meetups, whether it's in person or virtual. So I think it really is a matter of finding different resources. And this could be something that your counselor possibly helps you with.
Okay.
If you're not too sure where to look, you can bring in your counselor and go, hey, I'm wanting to do XYZ, like, can you help me with this research? And maybe they're connected, your counselor is connected to the community in a way that you aren't or you didn't know of, and so they can find you different resources. So I think it really is a matter of putting yourself out there in order to make those connections and recognizing it's not going to happen overnight. It's something that we experience over a period of time, and people...
Yeah, building community, it takes time, for sure.
And it changes. Community is always in flux. I think that's why I say it's an ongoing process, because it's not like we find community and then that's it. It's the same as we don't just come out and then that's it.
Yeah.
It's really tempting for us to think of these things in that way, but I think there's so much freedom in knowing that these things are always in flux. There are always opportunities to step in, to take a step back, to shift, to change. Yes, it's not a on and off switch. There's so much beauty in the transitions and in the constant changes that can come in. It presents us with a lot of opportunities that may not have existed if things were just static.
Right. So as we've been talking, we have kind of said there has been meaningful progress when it comes to rights and visibility, awareness, representation. How do you see that progress impacting mental health today?
I think it can bring quite a bit of comfort, especially for people who have been, let's say, around. To recognize how far we have come is a milestone in and of itself. When things were popping off in the 1970s, right? Like, that's not that long ago.
Yeah.
Right? And we have made quite a bit of progress since then. And there have been quite a few attempts to take us backwards.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, I mean...
It's not always just a trudging forward.
Yeah, progress isn't linear.
Yeah.
So how do we cope with that kind of one step forward, two step back thing?
I think it's a delicate balance of recognizing that, yes, there have been people that have come before us that have had to fight really hard in order for us to get here. And there are still people here today who are impacted in a really, really big way by the two steps back. Let's say legislation or laws that are being tried to pass around trans folks' access to healthcare. Those are very dangerous things that deeply impact people's lives, specifically youth. Youth who don't have access to gender-affirming care are more likely to experience mental health challenges. The statistic is out there that that is a thing that youth are at increased risk for if they are not able to access gender-affirming care, if they don't have supportive families, if these very basic things are not at their disposal. They're not things that they're able to access.
You know, especially the last few years, there's a lot of public and political conversations about LGBTQ. How are you seeing that affecting people? How are you seeing that affect your clients?
There's quite a bit of fear.
Yeah.
There is definitely quite a bit of fear around how long am I going to be able to access this thing or that thing before it gets taken away. And so on the counselor's part, it's okay, recognizing that it is fear and it's valid fear, and still trying to ground ourselves in the right now rather than in possibly catastrophizing or in future telling, in the what ifs. Again, another delicate balance of where are we now and what may be coming down the pipeline that may impact us, and how do we gently engage in some element of problem solving so that we can try to manage that anxiety in a way that is going to make sense, but isn't going to kind of propel us into the future, into being anxious all the time about what's coming up. So it's an element of recognizing where are we now? What do we have access to now? How can we prepare in a way that isn't going to increase our anxiety for what may be coming down?
You know, you and I have had conversations about the idea of holding different emotions at the same time. How do we hold both hope and discouragement at the same time? Yeah.
We all at some point in time have had to do that. We need to recognize that there's, you know, the micro, meso, macro scales. What can I do on a micro scale? What can I impact on maybe the meso scale? If you do have access to lots of people, if you have access to different communities, how can you maybe contribute through donations, through volunteering your time, how to try to offset that hopelessness.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I find that the hopelessness can come at the heels of feeling like I have no control.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes what shows up in session is, okay, how can we have control over the things that we have control over and be able to move the needle a little bit to feel a little bit more hope in what's going on in the world. And so maybe you're feeling particularly hopeless about thing X that's happening over there, but you aren't able to volunteer your time, or you're not able to physically be there in order to help with thing X. Okay, let's think about what are other ways that you can help. Is it a matter of raising awareness? Is it a matter of financial donation? Is it a matter of getting creative, thinking outside the box? Like, reading up on things. Like, everyone's going to have their own way of trying to counter some of that hopelessness by leaning on, what do I, as one person in this world, what can I have control over so that I can access a little bit more hope?
Where do you see hope in LGBTQ communities right now?
We have existed for far longer than most people give us credit for. We have existed for as long as humans have been existing.
Yeah.
We've been around this whole time. Queer and trans folks are incredibly resilient, they're incredibly creative, and they have been surviving for eons. It's really paramount to acknowledge that we have always found ways to continue existing, despite oppression, despite discrimination, despite real threat and violence. Just by folks being themselves, I see that as a source of hope.
Yeah.
By them, even if they're not out to the world, if they're out to themselves, or if it's something that they're questioning or something that they're talking about, or even when it comes to allies talking about their queer and trans friends, normalizing it. I think it's all part of that movement, and it all instills hope in that queer and trans folks aren't beneath the surface. They're not in hiding. They're not seen as less than. We're trying to elevate their voices. We're trying to make sure that folks know that we exist, we have always existed, and we will continue to exist. And I think that in and of itself is hope.
For sure. For someone who's struggling, what are some small, realistic ways that they can take care of their mental health?
Reaching out, talk to your counselor, talk to your friends, be in community, don't struggle alone. There's no gold medal for struggling on your own.
Yeah.
We don't need to. I encourage folks to even reach out to one person to be able to talk to them about what's going on, and that could be an anonymous person online that you meet in a queer-friendly forum. It could be as simple as that, and I think we can find quite a bit of validation and comfort in not struggling alone.
And for listeners who want to be more supportive, whether they're part of the LGBTQ plus community or they're allies, what are some meaningful ways to show up?
I think specifically when it comes to Pride Month, engage in the festivities and the fun and the parties, and also engage in other aspects of Pride, whether it's volunteering your time, whether it's donating, whether it's talking to your coworkers more about it, whether it's educating yourself. I would encourage people to go beyond the celebratory piece and make it maybe a fun challenge for you to learn about something that you haven't learned. Maybe it's queer history that you want to look into, or maybe it's what are some of the Indigenous ways of existing as a two-spirit person, right?
Yeah.
Like there's so many different things that we can learn, and I think it can be a fun way of engaging in Pride Month, is just increasing our awareness and our understanding of different identities.
Thank you, Rasha. This has been an amazing conversation. I've learned so much, and I'm gonna take away a lot from this.
Thank you. Likewise.
You've been listening to Living Fully, a Calgary Counseling Center podcast. Thank you for tuning in. This episode was produced by Nick Here, Layla Ruggles, Louisa Campos, Juliana Adair, Jenna Forbes, and by me, Catherine Hertig. A special thanks to Rasha Taha. Living Fully will be taking a bit of a break over the summer, but we'll be back with new episodes starting September 1st. To stay up to date on our latest episodes, be sure to subscribe. We're available in your favorite podcast app. Living Fully is a production of Calgary Counseling Center and recorded in Calgary on Treaty 7 territory. Living Fully podcast is not a substitute or alternative for professional care or treatment. Calgary Counseling Center and Counseling Alberta provide effective counseling to anyone in Alberta with no waitlist and no financial barriers. Find us online at calgarycounseling.com and counselingalberta.com. For help across Canada and the United States, call 211. If you are outside of Canada and the US, seek help from your general medical practitioner.